Hello everybody, this is On and I'm coming to you with this month's video, and I see my light is shifting around a little bit in here, so I hope that it's going to be okay as we get through this today. Anyways, I feel like I have so many exciting things happening right now that is going to be unfolding, and they're so representative of what is happening. We've just in the last couple of days in the codes really opened up some big turning points and some big energy. And so a lot of people are actually probably going to be happy when I say justice is getting ready to be served. Justice is, oh boy, and there's a truth in that, right? Because my nose is itching. There's so much happening, and we're getting ready for things to move very quickly. And I'm going to get into that in a minute with everything. But these are really exciting times. And in the codes, you know, where people have been dealing with injustices, and particularly where people have been in this shutdown and this lockdown situation, and they may have been experiencing things that people were abusing and taking advantage of their power during this time, which is really sad because that's not what we need. But we are going to start seeing the justice get served, and this is exciting. So my big focus actually on this month's video is going to be getting into the codes of shifts and transformations and what that is about, and applying it to some really interesting patterns that we have going on globally. And this is showing up in our upcoming month. It's showing up in a big transition where the energy is present from now through early part of October. And so we have big stuff happening. I also want to mention, before I get too much into stuff, is that I have just opened up a new YouTube channel, and it's called Connecting Codes. In there, you should be able to find it pretty easily. I've just put up one preliminary video on it, but it's going to be a really fun channel to deal with. I may have a little bit of a challenge here for a little bit while I'm working on the writing part of the book, getting things done or getting things posted up on that channel. But what it's in a nutshell going to be about is dealing and looking with world events. What are the buzzwords that are coming out? What are those about? And looking at them from a code perspective, and then looking at the processes that are involved in that. So it's kind of a esoteric, energetic type of approach to world affairs. And what's the real meaning behind what is happening? So I'm probably going to be looking at some of those conspiracy theories and what that's about, and I talk about that. So if you're interested, go on over, check it out, Connecting Codes, and you'll see a video that I posted on there just as an introduction of who I am, why I'm doing the channel. And I think for those of you that have been following my work, and those of you that have an interest in the world affairs, you're going to enjoy that channel, and you're going to enjoy what we delve into there. So let's get started with this month's video and shifts and transitions. Wow, let's, a big breath into that. I just took a deep breath into that. And what is so exciting about the shifts and the transitions is it's happening on such a major schedule, and major, not a schedule, but a major way. And we've been talking about these major shifts and transitions happening a lot throughout this year. So it's been kind of a big focus in this year of, we know the 2020 is the year of restructuring and rebuilding, so naturally that's going to have that in that. And so when we get into what that's about, we now have it happening on other levels, right? Because most people have been in this lockdown. Most people have been in the realms of the four walls of their home, and some have been able to get out more than others, which has been really great for them. And some people have lived in areas where they could get out and they could work in their yards, and that has been really great for them. But there's a lot of people, particularly those of us up on the northern US, where it hasn't warmed up a whole lot yet. And we've spent a lot more time in home. And for me, it hasn't shifted a lot, but I know for a lot of people it has. And so we have this whole big change. And I know that change can be really challenging for a lot of people. And especially when you have not maybe had a lot of contact with people and you've been in this more withdrawn space. Now you're going to go back out into the world. And so I'm really hoping that this month's video provides a little bit of hope and encouragement and some positive energy to getting back out there again, because I really believe when we understand the bigger changes and shifts that are going on and the things that were the shifts and the transitions that are being made right now, I think we have a lot to celebrate. And celebration is really important. It's really something that we want to take the time to do, even celebrating the small things right now. So when these shifts and transitions are happening, we want to make sure that we are really looking at what we're supporting. So whether you're making a small shift or whether you're making a big shift, you want to first take a look and say, what am I really supporting in what I'm doing? You know, am I only working to pay for things and then I have to keep working to pay for those things? You know, maybe I could simplify down a little bit. Maybe I could make some shifts and adjustments. And this period is a fabulous time for doing that. And the reality of it is we're never going to 100% go back to the world that we're in. We're going to get back to some sort of normalcy, as you might say. But now that people have an insight, they have an awareness. And the thing that I've learned, and it's something that people have talked about a lot when they go on their process, and I know it's happened for me on my processes, is that you can't unknow something once you learn it. You know, once you really know it, you can't unknow it. And so this awakening has been happening in people. This kind of knowing is surfacing because they've been looking at things more, researching things more. And so we are now moving forward with a wisdom that we didn't have before. We're moving forward with the concept that certain things could happen that we never thought would happen in our life. And that is leading people to make a lot of shifts and changes and transitions. And so it's a very, very powerful time in our rebuilding. It's a very powerful time in this restructuring. And even though it can be stressful, I think it really opens some incredible blessings and incredible doors to what's going on. So let's look at the codes, for example, of shift or shifts in our life. And really right now, we're looking at the plural, right? Because we got a lot of shifts going on in our world. If we look at this energy, this is the energy of success. So things shift when successes are happening. We have shifts that come as a result of our learning. And when our learning is implemented in a wise way, when our learning is implemented through wisdom and in ways that are sustainable for our culture and our society, that really benefit us and open us up and connect us and feed the creativity in us, then we open a door that the success comes from the understanding. The success comes from the new knowledge that we have, the new wisdom that we have to work with. And so, for example, a lot of people, they've had to minimize down. They've had to look at more of the basics and the necessities of what they can deal with. And a lot of people in this process, I won't say everybody, because some people resist shifts and changes and transitions, but a lot of people are finding that they don't need as much as they thought. A lot of people are rethinking the structures that they've had in their life and how much they're working and how nice it is to have a little bit of freedom, not necessarily forced into lockdown, but realizing that, this is important. I also think a lot of people are coming to the awareness that survival is not a sustainable way of living. And they're going to be considering a lot more what will be sustainable. How do I build that cushion in for myself? Can we lead the simpler lifestyle and build a cushion in to take care of ourselves should something happen again? Now, I know in Jesse's parents' generation, those people that were born in the early part of the 19th century, they lived through the Great Depression. They lived through those hard times. So they always were thinking about having something in reserve. They were always thinking about what it took to not just get through that day or that month, but to sustain them going forward. And this is something that kind of got lost in a lot of generations. And for some generations, like in my generation, it became a bigger challenge because it was harder for people with the way things had been set up in society and culture. It made it harder to do anything other than survive. And that was greed and materialism and other pieces that were coming through. Our focus had shifted. And one of the things that those born back in the early 1900s realized was that there was more to life than just work. Work was important. Yes, they needed to feed their families, but the family time was important. The activities together were important. Doing something outside of work was important. And it was about something other than money in many ways. So we have a lot of the same shifting and redirecting going on right now. Now, the transitions that we talk about are also based on the same aspect of wisdom and learning from wisdom. When we look at it in a plural sense, it directly connects into abundance. So both of these pieces connect into abundance. So when we're truly in shift and transition and say not just making a change or being forced into something, which is not a shift or a transition, because a shift or a transition comes from wisdom, it comes from choice. And things that are not done by choice don't fall into that category. Things that are forced upon us would not fall into the natural category of shift or transition. So some people may feel like, well, this is forced. These changes are forced. But when we really get into what is happening, we realize that these are going to be some very powerful, these things are being done by choice. They're not all about force. So when we look at the offerings that transition gives us, it gives us the opportunity to step into our wholeness. It gives us the opportunity to tune in and connect with abundance. So if we're making a transition or a shift that's going to be successful, it will move us towards an abundant state. So if it's coming in its pure form, it will move us in an abundant state. If it's being forced upon us or it is not coming in its pure form, then it's going to remove us from abundance. And as we know, when we're standing in abundance, that's where our divine connection is. That's where our God connection is. That is where the alignment is, and that is where things flow. And when we're in abundance, especially as a culture, as a community, as a human race on this earth, then there's no need for greed. There's no need for the selfishness. It doesn't have to be there because there's enough to take care of everybody. There's enough to provide for everybody. And this is where the real flourishing happens. This is where we can lead the full life. We make the contributions and we give, but we also are able to receive. And the fear and the worry gets alleviated in this space because we know as a whole we can always take care of each other. And even if we can't, living in that wholeness in ourself, even if there's times that, we have just ourselves, when we are in that wholeness, we will bring in naturally the support. We will connect naturally with the people who can help us get through that rough spot. That's not about taking advantage of them, but if we are in abundance, we're not looking to take advantage, we're simply taking care of needs. We're simply taking care of, and again, there's a giving, there's an exchange, there's a sharing that's going on. Maybe somebody provides us with food, and if somebody's has other talents or gifts, maybe they do some yard work for the person in exchange for that food or whatever it is. There's always options, and when we're living abundantly, it becomes about human care. It becomes about love and compassion and humanity instead of greed and money. And it's not that we don't totally ignore all those things, but we redirect where the main priority or the main focus is, because we know when we focus on the humanity, we know when we focus on the compassion and the care and the abundance factor, that the other pieces fall into place, because the other pieces are a material piece, and the material always is going to respond to the internal. It's always going to respond to the heart center, because the heart center always operates on that vibration that is clear and pure. And when that happens, in order for the other energy to be accepted, which is part of what it looks for or it wants to have, it has to come up and meet into that love space. And that's where it gets really powerful, because then it can transcend and generate a lot of other things. So when we talk about major shifts and changes, now we're getting into the types of shifts and changes that are not affecting us just on a personal level, just in our own little community, but they are focusing and making shifts and changes in every existence, every timeline, every space throughout time and space. And so that means when we're making a true shift and a transition, we're having this powerful impact in something that is so much greater and so much bigger than us. And this is why we really want to be aware of what we're supporting in life. Are we supporting and working for people and doing the things that create humanity, that create caring for one another, that create sustainability? Or are we doing and working for those companies that are tearing down our earth, that are tearing down our freedoms, that are locking us into things that are destructive and harmful and damaging? So these are the pieces to weigh out. Now, I have my little notes here, so I'm going to grab them here for a minute. And I really want to look at, when we do these things, I want to talk about what are we shifting and doing transitions for right now. What is the transitions that we are making? And this is where it gets really, really powerful, that I hope there will be some optimism for you. And in that piece, what we find is the big core pattern that we're shifting right now is that we are going from slavery to freedom. And a lot of people may not realize what that is, but that plays out in so many realms, some of which are going to be quite obvious to us. Usually more in our own life, we see that, where we, like a lot of people, might realize how much of a slave they've been to their job, and now are trying to look at options that give them greater freedom. And that's going to span everywhere from that to things that aren't even being talked about right now. And slavery comes in a lot of ways that we don't even realize. Like, for example, we might look at a celebrity and we might think, oh, wow, that celebrity has an amazing lifestyle. And look, they live in this mansion and they live in, this great lifestyle, and they have gardeners and they have maids and they have all of this stuff. And, how could somebody like that be in slavery? Well, the interesting piece about that is that most of the time, they've had to sell themselves out to have those things. And they're not really free because as much as they might have money or they might be able to go take a trip or do these things that seem like nice things, they are totally controlled in most of what they can do. So they're not really free. They're not really operating in freedom or a free concept. They are a slave to their image. They're a slave to their fans. They're a slave to their promoters. They're a slave to their networks. And so they don't necessarily get to just speak out and speak their voice. They have to speak what their sponsors want them to speak. They have to speak what their producers tell them to speak. They don't necessarily speak what is from their own self. So there's a lot of slavery there. And if we look at these two patterns, and what does slavery do? And this is where, even on a societal issue, we look at this a lot, right? Where people have been kept in a slavery pattern, a master slave pattern, through big corporations or through jobs or different things like this in their life, and they become a slave to material things, to worldly goods, because they felt like they had to keep up with their neighbors, they had to have a certain type of house, they had to live in a certain lifestyle. Okay, so these material things tend to hold us in a slavery pattern. And what slavery does is it actually removes our wisdom and it removes our ability to enjoy true success. It is meant to squash our success. So this is why we have to be very careful when we start looking at things like world affairs, or we start looking at events that are happening. And this is why in our world we're seeing a big uprising towards freedom right now, because it's not just about, hey, I don't want to stay home another week. It has to do with, I'm not going to accept a slavery pattern in my life. I'm not going to accept to be a slave to somebody else's system. So it's very natural for this energy to be coming up right now, not just because of a confinement, but because this is where the code energy patterns are. And people, because they are waking up right now, they are coming into greater understanding of things and greater realizations of things, they're not willing to be dumbed down anymore. They're not willing to be squashed in their ability to have success or to provide for their families. And they're realizing that that's where they've been. So now we have an opportunity to move towards freedom. And when we look at freedom, there are some interesting pieces with that, because freedom isn't just about going out and doing whatever you feel like. In some ways it is. It's having the ability to choose what you want to do. But the key is that we are free from the programming of others. We're free from the influences of others. Real freedom is about being able to make your own decisions. And with real freedom actually comes a lot of responsibility. So some people think, oh, whoa, no, I don't want to go into that heavy energy. Maybe I don't want freedom. But when we get into being into the freedom, it's really a movement of getting the wisdom. It's breaking through the stagnation. It is being able to trust in coming home to your soul self, where true prosperity is, where true nurturing is, where true caring is. And so freedom is a nurturing. It's a nurturing of the self. It's a nurturing of the community. It's a nurturing of humanity. It's a nurturing of all of life on the planet. And in order to do that, we have to use a little bit of responsibility. But the really cool thing with responsibility that we love is that responsibility makes us proactive in the process. And responsibility is sustainable. So when we tap into being personally responsible for ourselves, and we don't have to be responsible for the whole world, but if we act responsibly in our own lives, through our own choices, not allowing other people to influence us, no matter how good their intentions are, then we can live in a truth. We can live in something that is sustainable, and we can live in a harmony that works for all of life on our planet, which is a really amazing, powerful space for us all to be in. It benefits everybody when we do this. And this is probably why you see so many spiritual people getting excited about world affairs and current events and news and things that are happening right now, because they're not looking at it from the aspect of a party or things like that. They're looking at it in terms of these bigger issues, and not even issues, but these bigger shifts and these transitions that are opening doors for us to continue to move into a fifth dimensional style of living, even though we're in a 3D body and existence, but bringing that fifth dimensional mindset forward. So this is why they're so excited about it, because the shifts and the transitions are taking us from slavery to freedom. So just a couple of the other little pieces that are in here. How does that play out in our practical world? That means that we're going to be moving from pharmaceuticals to therapies. Big difference. And this is going to be amazing for all those people that are doing the holistic coaching, that are doing, like my friend Jackie, who does, look her up, Jackie Tradewell. She does photon light therapy, which is going to be amazing. It has incredible benefits for the health and the body and being in wellness, and it's just amazing. So moving from this pharmaceuticals, which is extraordinarily damaging, it holds us in a slave pattern because it restricts us. It keeps us addicted. It keeps us logged into suffering and issues. And going into therapies. And why are therapies important? Because we get proactive in the process. We get out of that victim space. We open the door to using things that are in flow with nature. Not chemically, lab-made, with a bunch of junk in it, but move us into nature, okay? Then we have also the responsibility and the irresponsibility. So in these shifts and transitions, we're moving from being irresponsible, materially focused, living in greed, living in excess. And that doesn't mean that life is going to be horrible without, some of these things. It just means that we're going to be doing them more responsibly. We're going to be doing them in ways that we're thinking a little bit more about them and thinking about the impact and bringing in new options maybe for energy or electricity. One of the things that we're seeing come up as we get this mention of therapies, for example, is a lot of Tesla's inventions and thoughts are being brought forward right now. So a lot of the Tesla technology, and it's very interesting because I was just watching something last night that had to do with a kind of parody between Einstein and Tesla, and how Einstein stole the electricity from Tesla. And so, it's very interesting, but here we are coming full circle, realizing that some of those inventions or some of the electricity we've been using is dirty and it's not really sustainable or responsible, and now we're shifting into Tesla's technologies. They're being released in so many places, and this is so exciting to see these things coming forward. A lot of the light therapy that's starting to be talked about is based in Tesla's technology, and we know that these are in flow. So again, another reason why you're seeing a lot of spiritual people get really excited right now. We also have an aspect of injustices, being held captive, being in victim spaces, to justice being served. And I mentioned that at the beginning of the video. So I know of people that have been dealing with some landlord challenges during this time, people who have taken advantage of the elderly, different things like this. So in the past, prior to all of this stuff going down, we would have been a huge victim to this, and all this victim stuff would have been very, very heavily out there. It would have been much more intense, much more stronger. But now what we're finding, we've just entered with the new code influences that came in the last day or two, like today and yesterday in particular. We are now entering into an aspect of justice getting served. So this is a really powerful time. So those people that have felt like, God, I'm doing this and I'm still being taken advantage of, and it seems like this person's never held accountable. Well, guess what? Accountability is coming forward. And I am so excited about this on so many levels, because if you check out what I've been through and the intro video on the other channel, Connecting Codes, you're going to realize why I'm really, really excited about this period. Because this means on a bigger global level, on a bigger aspect beyond, again, just people or parties or things like that happening, we're going to see people who thought they have been immune to the law system getting held accountable. And this, again, is going to be happening over several months, but we're already starting to see it, right? Because in this shutdown period, there's been a ton of bust on child predators, on child pornography things, on, different components like this in our society. So the busts have actually been happening. They're actually coming down on them. And it goes so much deeper in that, because that's only one little surface piece. And now the people who have always thought they are above the law during this time period are very likely going to find out they are not above the law, and they don't get to get out of jail free type of thing. They're not going to be able to get away with things. And as a matter of fact, most likely what we're going to serve, based on what the codes are showing right now, is we're going to show that the justices are going to be harsher than normal. And they're going to come down harder because they've been going on for so long, because they have gotten away with so much that they've never had to be held accountable for. So again, the shift, this transition, is bringing this into check. And when justice is served, rightfully so, okay, talking rightfully so, when it is served rightfully so, again, we are opening up the freedom, we are opening up the abundance, we are opening up these pieces that are the things that no matter what side of the fence somebody is sitting on, no matter what culture they're in, I hear people wanting to bring about. They want to bring about a humanity, a caring, a getting along, living in a place that they feel safe, opening these doors. And that is what freedom is moving us towards right now. So it's incredible. So we have that piece of justice being served. Then we have the aspects of inhumane to humane. That's another piece within this slavery freedom continuum that we're going through. So we're moving from what is inhumane to humane. So this is where you've heard a lot of the spiritual people talking about it, shifting from what could have been a new world order lifestyle into simply a new world or a new way of being. It's two totally different things. So the new world order aspect, which focused a lot of inhumane aspects and pieces and control, we're shifting. We're shifting from that inhumane to the humane. So we are shifting now into this, and this is why we're seeing so many of the big players in that getting knocked down right now. They're getting shut off right now, because every time those players get shut off, it stops that new world order agenda aspect from coming forward or being in existence. It's crumbling that down. And so it is going to crumble down, and there's nothing that can stop this. There's nothing that can stop the flow of the codes. The codes are what they are. They are based on truth. They don't take sides. They don't care. It's all about how you're living. And people might think they don't have a lot of impact, but they do. Because each one of us that chooses to live in a humane way, and this isn't just about whether you're vegetarian or not vegetarian or whatever, but each one of us that chooses to live a humane lifestyle, from the heart with compassion, caring about not only ourselves, but other people and the impacts we're having on the environment, and all of these pieces are shifting towards humanity. So we're all making the shift, even if we're only focusing on ourselves in this. Very, very powerful. And then we're moving from, and I'm trying to read we're moving from lies to truth. This is another big thing. We're seeing a lot of this where people in their time at home, let's say, have realized there's been a lot of lies going on. They're realizing a lot of things are opening up. And so part of the shift, slavery, part of the slavery continuum is all about lies. Because if people know the truth, they don't need to be slaves. If people know the truth on things, they don't buy the lies. And lies are only necessary if you're trying to control people. It's only necessary if you're trying to hold suffering onto the world. So even though the truth doesn't always feel good, it is a piece of the freedom. It is a piece of becoming accountable for ourselves. It's a piece of facing the reality and moving through it and not being stuck in that victim space, in the torture space, in the suffering space. So this continuum, these shifts, these transitions are beyond powerful right now. And then finally, the other piece I had in here was chaos, going from that into harmony and balance. So right now, things are still in some of that chaos. Some of that chaos is going to be present for a while because of the era, the time period, the generations that we're in, and the code influences that are in that right now. Because there's just so much change. There's so much transition. There's so much adjustment going on. And it takes time to make some of those adjustments. It's not like we can just wake up and boom, the world's all honky-dory and great and, none of the bad stuff exists. The key is, and chaos isn't always bad, right? This is one of the things that we try to make things bad or good or bad or good all the time. But, this is where I say even the dark stuff, the shadow stuff, the evil stuff has a purpose. What happens is it gets distorted in this dimension. It gets distorted to where its true self can't show. And so even though it doesn't totally stop existing, what happens is it stops being an issue that holds us into the slavery pattern, is what happens in the shifts and the transitions, because then it gets to be in its truth. And its truth is not destructive necessarily. Its truth is not damaging. Its truth actually lies in the freedom continuum. So it actually gets an incredible new piece that becomes very valuable to us in that aspect. But we're moving into now, these times, the codes are leading us towards harmony and balance. So a lot of the drama that we've been in is going to start to stabilize. Is it going to go away? No. There's still going to be a lot of ups and downs and highs and lows and shifts and transitions. And the reason for this is because we're in times that are all about that right now. And that's not just going to happen for a month or a couple of months. We're in a few years that involve that. And so those shifts and those transitions, again, they become very powerful, but the balancing and the harmonizing, and of course a lot of this comes down to how are we using our power? What are the choices that we're making? And when we're misusing our power, we're going to take some hard falls, okay? When we are using the power wisely, when we are working towards humanity, when we're supporting the things that create freedom, when we are moving into truth, all of these different components, okay, then we are creating a balance. And the key is that we don't need to go to a whole nother extreme, right? We don't need to punish, to torture and suffering those who have made us torture and suffer. It's not about that. It's about justice. It's about balance. But when we come into balance, it encompasses the benefits that every piece has to offer. When we come into harmony, we learn to make things work together. We learn to bring them together in a favorable way. So it's a whole different shift. We're no longer, the key is that we don't bounce between these extremes. Now, all of that being said, we have the opportunity over these next few months to see a really rapid level of success coming forward. So it's going to be really exciting to me anyways to see what that success offers. And the people that are going to see the biggest blessings and the biggest successes coming through right now are going to be those people who have been doing the work, who are making these shifts and these transitions, who are realizing the core of what they're supporting and the core of what they're moving towards. And again, I think that if we could remove all of the labels that separate us and get down to, just drop those boxes, drop that confinement, drop those labels, and get down to what's core importance for us. I think it's living a happy, healthy life. I think it's having a safe world for our children to grow up in. I think it's about having choice to choose whether we have something or don't have something, and that each person has that choice. I think that it is about having a world that we don't have to work 2 or 3 or 5 jobs or whatever it is, that we have time to play and time to work, and that we get our world to a place that supports that. And the challenge is, and why it's so hard for some people to make the shifts and the transitions, is because they have become so locked into certain things having to be into place that they haven't been able to see or experience or have any taste of what it's like for it to be different than that master-slave pattern, than to be different from people telling them what to do all the time or making decisions for them. So we need to be patient with those people that are learning. We need to be patient with those people that are just starting to get it. We need to be patient with those people who are struggling to make the shifts and the transitions. And, we have so much happening in the world affairs, so they become some great examples right now. And this is part of why I'm opening the other channel up, so that I can keep this channel focused on the spiritual awareness, the spiritual patterns of things, the energetic patterns of things, the wisdom pieces here. But there's so much of it happening right now, and it's what really applies in people's life. And it's so powerful for us to tune into this right now. So I hope that those of you who have already done the work on yourself, you've already been breaking through your own addictions, you've been breaking through your own patterns, and you've been doing all of this, that you reach your hand out, have a little patience to other people, and to, remember what it was like to be in their position. Remember what it was like when everything you knew was being changed and broken down and shattered, and everything that you trusted and relied on, you found out was a lie. We have a lot of people in that space, so it's going to take us stepping forward and being there for them. So with that, I don't know how long I've run, probably way longer than I intended to, but I want to take a quick few minutes here. I want to do a couple of great breathing. I've got the big singing bowl out today, so the nice deep resonance, and I think that I wanted to really use this, and I wasn't quite sure why I grabbed this, but I think I know now, because it's got a really deep sound. Listen to this. Right? So it's got this really good earthy grounding sound, and we're moving right into the sign of Taurus. We're into that energy now. We're getting into the month of May, which is this really great earthy energy, really grounding for us. So I think that this is the right one to use this month. in this. So let's all take a moment. Let's all take a really nice deep breath, big breath. And let's just center in for a minute because there's a lot of information. And I just want you to focus for a minute on this concept of shifts and transitions. And I want you to now take a minute and tune in to maybe some ways that you have been living as a slave or living in master-slave patterns. Maybe you've been holding other people in slavery aspects. And I want you to become aware of where that has been in your life or where it is in your life. Where are you turning that power over or trying to take power from others? And I want you to feel comfortable in saying no to that. No to that burden and responsibility, not the responsibility, but no to that pattern. No to being the victim or the perpetrator. Because as the perpetrator, you are as much, if not more, of a victim than the victim. You are more of a slave as the perpetrator. And as you say no to that, feel yourself getting lighter. Feel yourself getting some movement. Feel that restrictive suit that you've been in coming off. Picture yourself really stretching, really reaching. Really having a freedom of movement. And now, I'd like you to tune in to seeing yourself morph and shift and change. See yourself making the shifts, making the transitions. What does that look like? What does that feel like? How amazing would it be to be fully free, to be fully unrestricted, to be fully in command of your life, to be able to have freedom to enjoy life. How does that feel? To be able to make your own decisions. To know that you can now take your life towards supporting what is sustainable, what is truthful, and as you enter that space of freedom fully, let yourself feel the joy in your heart. Let yourself feel the energy, the abundance of energy that you have. to create, to do, to be. Having the gift to do the things that are your gift, your heart, that you love. That work in harmony with every other life force, that feeds the joy into our world. How powerful is it for you to be able to be who you are, living healthy, able to make smart and wise choices, able to tap into your own wisdom. How does it feel to live a life that is full, that fills you up with so much joy, so much happiness, so much love? How does it feel to have compassion? Know that this world can be yours. It is yours. It's what we are creating. And I want you to hold this joy in your heart. I want you to keep giving your mind that feeling, that joy, those pictures of what it is like to be in freedom. And I want you to celebrate that space. Celebrate it with your whole self. Rejoice in this being the existence we are creating. And now come back into yourself, your body. Become aware of your physical senses. Breathe deeply into that. And I know that some of you may not want to come out of that space because it's such a beautiful, wonderful space, and that's okay. You may have to stir for just a moment to turn off YouTube once the video shuts off if you want to remain in that space. What I have to say is don't be afraid of the shifts and the transitions that are happening. I understand they can be scary, but we don't want to hold on to the fear. What we want to hold on to is the excitement. And each one of us that holds this memory of freedom, that holds this memory of shifting into a world where our hearts are wide open, where people are compassionate, where we're living in harmony with all of life. We will create that. We have the power, and each one of us that joins in on that thought, on holding that intention, creates a rippling of energy all throughout our earth. and we will create that existence. We will make it happen. Even if it doesn't happen overnight, even if there's challenges to face along the way, if we hold the awareness, the truth, the understanding that that is what we are creating and that is what we are moving into, we will get through each and every one of them. And the time for that manifesting will come sooner and sooner and sooner. We have an enormous amount of things happening in our culture, our society, our world right now. But we don't have to be afraid of them. And we can implement them in responsible and wise ways, regardless of what those say that try to put fear in us, that tell us lies. This is a time for us to stand on our own. It's a time to take a stand for what is really, really important. I hope you've all found this really valuable. Thank you so much for letting me share with you this month, and I will see you again next month. And for those that are interested in the world affairs, politics, the current events, what's the deeper code meaning behind them, check out the Connecting Codes channel on YouTube. Take care, everybody.